Thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased.
Okay, so Steelbook family, guess who I have for you? I am so excited to bring you Trey Smith. Now, y'all know I've been talking about the fact I know him. I know him for years. I feel like Elf, like I Santa. I know him. But we have been friends for a long time.
Yes,
a long time.
So Amy, yes, Amy, thank you for the work that you and your husband have done for a lot of years. And we just pray, and I thank you for these broadcasts that you do and the work that goes into them.
Thank you.
And also some of the videos that you do and talks you do are about things like where I on Nephilim and topics like this that a lot of people don't talk about. And so I was talking to you yesterday, as I have on numerous points over the years, and you were telling me kind of a story about what perked your, because no one sets in to talk about something like that.
Right.
Yeah, unless something has happened to them or things have happened to them where they've seen stuff. And that probably includes most of the people listening to you or listening to a broadcast like this one.
Yeah.
So that you would think, because it seems out there to the common, less out there now than
in 2013.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Well, I was telling Trey yesterday how I got to know him was I started doing research online after and many of you have heard this story, after I saw what could only be described as a shapeshifter, which would be a Nephilim, some kind of a hybrid creature, human thing. We'll get into that story here in just a second. And I did not have a grid for it at all. And so I was researching, I came across the word Nephilim. I'm looking at all of that. And then I saw Trey Smith, Nephilim, like God in a nutshell. And so that's when I started going down that rabbit hole. And so Trey was one of the ones 10 years ago, well, longer than that now, 12 years ago, that helped me frame what happened to me. Very much similar to the girl on the plane, remember, that everybody was kind of making fun of, and she was like, that dude is not real. He's not real. Right, something happened like that with me when we lived in Australia in 2013. And you can actually go to all the archived broadcasts, and I did a 3-part series on Nephilim after I realized what I was dealing with. And so Trey, we were talking a little bit about that story yesterday, and I'll just quickly talk about it really quick if you've not heard this story. But I was on a bus, and Steve was with me. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. We were coming back from Sydney. We were doing a meeting in Sydney, headed back to North South Wales, the DYs where we lived. And there was this thing that got on the bus, and Steve was kind of dozing. He was asleep. I was on my phone, but as soon as this thing walked onto the bus, every sensory overload, everything, I felt such a presence of evil that I tell people, if you are a child of the King, if you're a child of God, you should be able to sense the host of heaven, whether they're fallen or not, or any kind of situation like that. So the presence of overwhelming evil caught my attention way before this thing turned around and I saw it. So I'm like, what is going on? My hair on the back of my neck was standing up, and I'm like, obviously something's up with that guy. I didn't know, because he had like an overcoat on, like a raincoat, and he had a hat like that was like kind of like JFK used to wear, like the fedora gangster kind of hat.
Style,
yeah. But his back was facing me, and he was faced toward the front of the bus. Anyway, so I'm looking at it, and this thing turned around, and he was about maybe 12 feet from me. So I could see he was right there. And so I was looking at him, and his eyes, he just looked weird. Everything about him looked weird. But his eyes were normal, and then he went like that, and then they just turned reptilian.
With the black eye.
100%. Well, they were like
split, like a cat eye, reptile
slits.
eye.
Yes, they were green with slits in them. And I'm like, what did I just see what I thought I saw? And then he had like a water bottle. He was holding a water bottle, and he was looking at me, sheer evil, like pure hatred on his face. And he had this water bottle, and he goes like this. He was looking at me, and he like did his fingers around this water bottle, and I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And he wanted you to see.
He wanted me to see those fingers, like, and so I'm like, Steve.
Yeah, you want him to see that.
And so I kind of and I said, look at that thing. And so Steve's looking at it. We were just like a stare down tray with this thing on the bus, and there was no one else on the bus except for me and Steve and Valerie Peacock, one other person, our friend that was there with us. We all three saw it.
Yeah.
And there was nothing was said, but I just started saying the name Jesus under my breath. And the next thing, it got up, and he never sat down, which is another thing. His legs, the thing, it looked like, you couldn't tell because he had pants on, but it looked like the legs were not normal either in some way, like the knees were going backwards or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. All I know is that and all the research that I've done since then, you have the reptilians, you have the grays, you have all the different types of entities, but this thing was just kind of a conglomeration of something that was a hybrid, not human, etc. So again, after that happened to me, and then I had another experience in Australia right after that, where I'm praying about this, confirm, where I saw a picture of several discs, like perfect formation over the Sydney Harbor Bridge, and so after those things happened, I went and I found you. And I saw your first video, and then I just went all the way down the rabbit hole, and I did Noah, and all the things that you've done that I promote all the time on the Sealed Book, you guys know. It helped me so much because you put a biblical framework on what I was trying to process of what I saw. And so since then, several things that you've done. You did Enoch that came out. You've done, obviously Noah. If you've not seen Noah, you got to see it. But so many other things. And Trey, I guess you and I were talking about a situation that you had that put you kind of on down that path as well.
So Amy is a lady that wears cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. I'm gonna go directly into that, but what's funny is you would hear a story like that from someone, and that's a story that would typically be uncomfortable to state. This thing happened to me, and I mean, it sounds kooky, right? But there's this thing that got on the bus, and it gets off at the next stop, and it wanted you to look at. So, and when you were telling me that story, which you hadn't, Amy, we've hung out on numerous times before, but this story you told me yesterday, and I was thinking about this lady that many years ago, and so one of the reasons that I had thought there's weird stuff out there, because you might as a kid have friends that play with some stuff or whatever, and growing up, and you see some different things, but you kind of write these things off in your mind. Yeah, and
it's my imagination,
and it's weird that, and probably many of the people that are watching have done that a lot of times. There's probably things that have happened that you might not even know yourself. Like, did that really you kind of back yourself out of it. Yeah, did that? It can't be, it can't be right. And we've done this a lot about the nation as well. When things are happening, I know they're lying to me, but surely they wouldn't really do that. And then you come to find out, they would. Yeah. And a lot of these things that we thought weren't real are real. So what caught me, one of the things was about this water bottle, and I don't know if it has meaning or not, but he's, so in your view in that story, so here's the fingers around the water bottle, and you're counting the fingers.
Spindly, long, weird.
Yeah, and he's wanting you to see this, but he's also holding this water bottle. And do you remember that movie by M. Night Shyamalan? It was an awful alien movie, but and the aliens looked horrible in it. It had Mel Gibson. It was called Signs.
Yes.
But the aliens were scared of water, which sometimes is reverse. I don't know why I just thought of that while I'm talking here, but but water. So there was a lady that I dated many years ago, and I won't state her name she actually passed away a few years ago. Very nice woman. She loved the Lord. Her family loved the Lord, but she had told this really kooky story to me, but she was cute, and I'm a guy, and so I'm single, and so I'm like, well, okay, so but it was a really out there story to me, and actually so out there that I kind of wrote the whole story off, and let's talk about something else, because and here's what these story, but I remembered the story later because the things that she was telling me were things that I would begin experiencing as I was together in this relationship.
Okay.
And so I would start, when you walk into many of these, what they would call New Age shops or even occult shops or whatever, there's always the orbs, right? Somehow there's orbs involved in this. And then you've got these beings like people talk about. They've got the you may know better what they call them, the blonde-haired ones that are
like the Nordics or the tall whites.
They'll have these different names for these different things. So in this lady's, here was the story, and you're like, man, she's kind of cute. I don't know what to do about this. Let's talk about some, but here was the story. So the story that she told, and it was imperative. This was like really important to her, when thinking back, which was also if you're a guy and you're kind of wanting to get off that topic, but this was her.
She had to tell you.
This was what's going on, right? And the story was this: that there was she's having dreams about this really good-looking guy, and that's the way she would describe it, right? He's got the blonde hair, and this thing had, and it might have even been whitish, in her thing, but this was a really attractive dude. And it was this dream dude, basically, the mist and the dream dude, right? And so her and her sister would go out when they were younger to different nightclubs, and they dress up in different they're girls, right? So, but on this one occasion, she's there, and she's been having these dreams, and the dude comes walking out of the crowd, right, and just walks past through a crowded thing and says, "I saw you in my dream last night, and you were wearing that shirt." And walks, and she's like, wait a second. She starts going through the crowd to find this guy, can't find him, right? And looking through the place, asks the sister, can this guy's in here somewhere, and she can't find it, like really strikes her. So then later, not long afterwards, this guy, she's out there, she's living, I think maybe in Florida somewhere, but out there, and this guy's walking down her street, which to a normal person, so let's say Amy, when you were younger or single, you might be attracted to this guy, but you see him and you chase him down through the nightclub and try to make your way through. If he's walking down the street now, it's still going to have some kind of, like, why is he there?
Yeah, it's like,
how did I not notice this before?
Right.
It may not freak you out but she just, part of the story was she was so infatuated that these thoughts aren't even there. It's like, oh my God, that's the guy that, I'm going to go talk to this guy, And she says, can I get your phone number? Can I, what's your name? Can I get your phone number? And he didn't have a phone. Okay. So, and this might even be in the range, where cell phones were kind of new. So that
Right.
might even be more plausible at that time.
Right.
But she says, would you like to go out with us? We're going to go and eat. And he says, well, I don't have any money. Oh, that's okay. I'll pay for it. I don't have a car. Well, it's okay. You can come in my car and we'll go. And she's really wanting to but an infatuation that is beyond normal. And I thought about this in retrospect, where you have these beings or these spiritual entities, like Vishnu, for example, in the fish form. So a participle of this imagery that you wouldn't notice without those stories is, you'll have Vishnu in the fish form, but then you'll have the women on the beach kind of fawning after Vishnu.
Right.
And
Right.
and I began noticing this, over here in the corner, the women just are so happy to see him. He's coming forth, and they're that's important to Vishnu, right?
Right.
Or in a whole list of them.
Right.
Right. So it's there. It's not even noticeable or prominent in the footage, but it's important to Vishnu, like those chicks like me. So it's in this ancient imagery, right?
Wow.
Even in that Michael movie where John Travolta played the angel or whatever it was, and the angel is kind of not really a good angel. I can't really remember the film, but I do remember the parts of the film where the girls are fawning over. He tells the one character that's the woman, I put a block on you, because every time they walk into a bar, all the women are just fawning over this angel character. And even the sister was stating, "Oh my gosh, this guy was just so hot. I mean, if you saw him," and I was just, I was like, wow, I was jealous of my sister. And see my point? And I mean, that was integral to the story, right? I just couldn't contain it. I got to run up to him and talk to him, And
a natural jaw.
So anyhow, guy apparently goes with her. And I talked to the sister afterwards, like after this lady had passed away, and I said, let me just tell you about this. And she says, oh yeah, my sister talks about this all the time. This guy and we went out to dinner with him, and he was there, and he didn't talk a lot. He really didn't say anything, except then people asked him. They said, apparently one of the sister's friends or whatever says, well, where are you, where are you from? Like you might ask somebody, hey, where are you from? And he's like, oh, I'm not really from here. And
Okay.
that's what he said.
He's not from here.
Yeah, but if you had somebody at the table say that and kind of put well, no, seriously, man, where are you from? Oh, yeah, it's okay. I'm not really from. I mean, you're not going to keep pushing, because
Right.
you're
Not a big deal.
guys, clearly not wanting to talk, but this is about all that's said by the guy. He's just that hot-looking guy that doesn't say anything from the girl's, view. So she's coming back, and taking him back, and is saying, maybe where do you live at or whatever, but stating, why don't you come into my place, right? And so so this is what occurs. They walk in, and she's got a dresser and whatever things she's got on her dresser, and he says, hey, do you want to see a neat trick? And he put his hand out over the dresser, and he lifted up like that, and everything on the dresser went up like this.
Okay.
And so she's looking over at it, and as a person, you're thinking, there's some strings or some kind. She runs over to go through the strings, but there's no strings there, and it dawns on her that there's nothing holding.
Yeah, and it's her dresser and her stuff.
Right.
He just lifted.
Right.
Up.
It's all
Right.
happening fast,
Yeah.
And she looked over, and he said, I thought that I told you I'm not from here. And she said the eyes went black. And she said, and I asked her about this numerous times, what she meant by it bounced on the walls, but she said it looked like it turned into something else, and it literally went over the thing, and it was standing there.
Wow.
And this is the kind of story you wouldn't tell normally.
Yeah.
Wouldn't even, I don't share. So if you tell anyone this story, Amy, I'm just going to state that Amy's not telling you. No, I'm just kidding with you. This was the story that she told, and you can see why, someone's telling you this. You're like, okay, well, that's great. Let's move on to the next subject. But this is what she's stating. And so she said she closed her eyes, and this lady very much loved her, and she just said, Lord Jesus, and she said she felt all these hands come out of thin air and grab a hold of her, and she's standing there, and she didn't know what was happening, but she felt hands come over. Oh, which is interesting later, but
Wow.
she said, Lord Jesus, would you just come into this situation? And she felt the hands go, and she opened her eyes, and the guy wasn't there. And she's looking around the room, and the guy's not there, and everything's sitting on the dresser. And he walks back out, this guy with the blonde hair, and he walks back out of the kitchen, And she said she said that she looked over at him. He just walked cordially out. He was holding a glass of water, and he took a sip, and he set it down, and he said, "It was nice seeing you. I guess I'll see you later." And he walked out of the house. Now, she never physically, it's one of those stories like, what do you do with that?
Right. Yeah, it's your Trey. You're trying to date this girl, and you're like, this girl is wacky.
Well, she was very cute, and I thought, I'm serious about that, because I think a lot of times, and growing up, there were a number of times when I was younger, there'd be girls into all sorts of stuff that, it's that kooky, so you're trying to, I mean, what are you going to do, Amy? I mean, so, I mean, in a lot of other respects, this was a wonderful lady in a great number of respects, but this was a story that was important to her. And and she would talk about these orb things that she believed were following her. So this is more stuff that you want to write off, right? But you think back on it later, and you're beginning to think, wait a second, all these occult shops. And so like out here, we're around trees and stuff. And in this lady, she kept talking about this orb thing that would follow her, and so I don't know what these things are, but I just know that when you walk in the New Age shop or whatever, you got the orbs that somehow surround the thing. So the two are somehow together, right? Whatever it is that they're doing is somehow together. And this was a very wonderful lady, by the way, and I'm not gonna ever state her name but I do want to state that her family, she had an incredible mother that loved the Lord, and I think she had something that trafficked with her, and I honestly think that this thing came from the Capitol. And I'm not going to say some of the things that she did for a living to get money, but there were things that that political figures, and she never shared a lot of it. These were things that she wouldn't have shared, save for the fact you got to know her well. And then when, of course, if you're dating somebody, you're not wanting to hear this stuff anyway.
Right.
So, but I think what was happening also was that there were parts in her life where she
Maybe opened a door.
Well, I think even might even be heavier than that. Imagine if you were with people that do political stuff or somehow behind that stuff, and they're the kind of people that, it's funny, I'm thinking about these type of parties now that people have had in those different places, and they'll call, and so there'd be drivers and there'd be security, and these girls would be brought in and see. But now those guys that are at those parties are saying things, or you might be witnessing things that now you're scared of your own life, sort of a thing.
Right.
And so you're in these situations. She was always worried that people were, I'm not going to go a lot further with that, but I always felt in my spirit that there was something that, the real source of the thing that was coming out was something that was affiliated with all of that. And this all began, and these were, so they literally had offered to pay girls well, I think at some point, that were from different, she wasn't from Washington.
Gotcha.
Right?
Different
so
parts
we're
of the country.
we're gonna transport you up here. You'll be housed in, however it worked. Right? Yeah. The more I think about it, the more my heart just sort of torn about it, because it's painting a picture. So, but this thing that she went on the date on with, I don't believe that it ever left the date. And so there were a lot of scenarios. So she would say these orb things were following her. And
So he walked out of the house with the water, not seeing you, but
I think
you
he
feel like
actually
he kind of stuck around in her world.
Yeah,
in her
I
life.
think he might have actually set the water down, but in the story you told, so he, there's something about the water, it wouldn't, or maybe nothing about the water, but the thing's holding a water, and it clearly, because there's also something about it wants you to see it. It wants you to see it. And what's weird, I was thinking about this, it might be going around with it might be going and doing this to a lot of people.
Maybe so.
Right?
Maybe
More
so.
than it even does for the people. So you'll hear about in California or Seattle these black houses where they'll set out a chair for Satan to come at their Luciferian parties. So this is what's rumored to happen. I haven't visited one.
No.
So, but it sounds like if you're sitting out a chair very often, Lucifer's not showing up. Maybe he's out hanging out with a. So, and when you do hear, right, he's out to, he thought someone else was cooler to hang out with. Yeah. He's out with the girls in the imagery fawning, or So, but there's something to that, because when you get glimpses of, the world of this pyramid, if you will, that you'll hear, well, the spirits have said, well, the master says, or whatever. Mm-hmm. So there's more like an attorney-ish feel to it, a more rigid, it's certainly not, hey, watch the dresser.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'll be going now.
Yeah.
Right? So this thing, like you as a person might be more comfortable with someone you don't know or somebody that can't do anything about it, more than somebody you've got at the top of a pyramid that is that you're actually depending on to do stuff. You might be more the master, so like even a mediation type thing. The master has spoken, the master has said, right?
Yeah.
The master's over here screwing with this girl. Maybe, but these orb things would, and I kind of learned a little about them in the process of it, because first you're going from this kooky stuff, and you might even observe a light thing going around or whatever, but you started asking now, why is there these couple of light things that seem to be over here, but you'll write that off a bunch,
Yeah.
and then you start, trying to do little things to the light thing. So let's say the light
So
thing.
you started dating her, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
so she had orbs, and then you're paying attention to.
Well, you start to, because these weird things are beginning to happen, and so you would notice, so let's say there was a light thing in the woods. It's sort of an interesting example, because this took place. I grew up in Texas, and in areas in like Spring Cypress, so there's a lot of woods and trees and stuff. So, but the light thing, so that she thought was following her. So there was, one occasion in particular where I just sort of, I'm standing there, and there's, you see kind of what you think is a light thing, and you don't know what it is. Maybe it's, who knows what it is, right? And you kind of look over and pretend you're not looking at it, which is funny about that, because, see, now you're establishing whether it knows that you're looking at it or not, or whether it's fooled by, can it get in your head and understand what's going on?
Right.
And the answer to that might be no. So, you kind of look the other way and just look around and pretend to be doing something else. And then as it's sitting there, and you can kind of sense where you look back at it real quick and see if it moves back behind a tree real fast, you're like, oh my gosh, I just caught that thing. Right? Mm-hmm. And you're beginning to see that it's, and particularly, so, but after a few of those times where something like that happens and you turn around and catch it, see, I don't think it's see, now it knows that and you know that, see, whatever it is, right? Whatever is it a feeler for something else? Is it so in the old Disney movies, you had fairies in the woods and stuff like this. I have no idea I don't think there's a little person flying around, but you've got some kind of a light thing.
Something.
This thing, it can move things around. It could pick stuff up, and at one point, but I'm glad I could lift things. It could do things that it could do things that
The orb could?
no, not the orb.
The entity?
So around this lady, light bulbs would not be able to keep. Those big vanity mirrors. It was difficult to keep light bulbs going in the house back in that area, and there was one time I was looking. It was her and I standing, and I got so accustomed to it at that time. But I think that the Lord showed me these things, how real it would touch. How do I explain this? I think that they work on permission. So imagine
Probably.
like your video editing program that you've got for editing this video. Okay, so the video editing program requires you to do this and this before these other buttons, which are there the whole time, become available for you to push. So the word for that is something like ghosted or whatever.
They're ghosted.
It's interesting what we're talking about, but it's ghosted. It's you see it there, but you don't have the permission yet to click it. So that means that whatever the thing is doing over here, it's looking for the permission to click that button. And I remember one of the things my dad is sort of towards the closure of that relationship, than my dad was telling me as he was stating, well, if you've got something like that that's living and, that's there with you, then I guess, and if it's older than you and it's wiser than you and it's trying to deceive you and trick you and it's looking for more access, then it sounds like you might not want to play chess with it.
Yeah.
And I really remember those words. And by the way, this was a very wonderful lady. And there were, there were things that floated. And I'll see these movies where they'll talk about, like in the It thing, the kids float and stuff like this. There's something, but I think it will do it because it wants you to look at it. And it's amazing how you can, as long as it's not touching my stuff,
Right.
But it gave me a deeper sense of that things like this are real.
They are real.
And now what exactly that means, I think there's a pecking order.
Yeah.
So when you're getting kind of these simplified answers and you're, don't mess with it. That would be my dad's simple, and that's sort of what you're being told in the Bible. But in whatever their reality is, I think it works on authorities. Mm-hmm. And so the thing they're scared of most is that you will discover them and discover how to deal with them.
I feel like, just like with me and just like with her, Jesus is the name above every name. At his name, every knee, no matter what kind of knee,
right,
or where it came from, will bow. And that, at least in my experience, when I literally said the name Jesus, I mean, it was gone. I got off the bus. Same thing with this girl. When she did that and just prayed, it released her.
Right.
That sort of thing. There may have been some permissions, like you were talking about, that allowed that, whatever that thing was, to stick around, stay,
right,
and basically haunt
it
her
could
home.
touch things. Let me tell you. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
you
go ahead.
Okay, so because I'd forgotten about this, so this was part of the big ones when I started to realize this is kind of heavy what's going on. So what I really had believed was that maybe she had some psychological issues. Okay, because she would sometimes state that hands and things were touching her, and she would get in a corner and just begin to scream. Okay, and state that things, and so nothing's,
You can't see it.
You're there on the floor, and this would go on for substantial amounts of time, and then there would be, but she would dearly. This wasn't being made up. She was clearly experiencing this. So I'm trying to reason it out. What's the probability here that something is, that a bunch of hands are touching her right now, or that she's been through a bunch of trauma, and so right now, and I also went through the phase of asking myself, is this something that she does to get attention of some type? You know what I mean? Because you're reasoning this stuff out, but I'll think back on those thoughts because those are stages of. You're watching something and someone is doing this. Okay. So on this one occasion, she was stating that things were touching her on her back. And so I lifted up the shirt on the back to look at what was happening, and she's screaming and crying like this, and scratches began appearing on the back.
Wow.
And it was like it did it to show you this isn't fake.
Right.
And I'm looking at it. So now you're asking the question, wait a second, why is this happening to her and I'm right here and it's not? See, now you're beginning, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
So what is the barrier on this?
Right. Why is it not scratching you?
Yeah. And what little button does it need to click before that can happen?
Right.
Right. And if it can pick up a thing and make it float, it made a coffee cup float one time. And this happened and this became, to a point, like I turned my head from it, like I did with the orb thing. And I noticed that the cup, this thing was really an intense thing. It just simply trafficked with her.
Wow.
And but from that, you think to yourself, on a heavier level of what is this? What are these things?
Right.
that hide from your train of sight. And on what instance, why are they able in some instance, or are they able always? And I don't think they are able always to lift or manipulate something. I don't know that answer, Amy, but if you've got something that can do that you can't see, you begin wondering what that is. And I really believe that, we all have a lot of things that happen in our life that we are there, and they might even be a demonic thing, like this lady was, and she was not a demonic lady. She was a lady that very much loved the Lord, but I think there was something that was attacking her, and you might not know how to hit the off switch. And the off switch, so in her case, if you would go and you'd say, let's take the name of Jesus and let's pray. See, immediately, I think what the thing does, because there was years later, over time, I've talked to people that would write and have different things, and I think, so when you have these haunted house things, there was one lady that described, so the parents would be vicious and violent and all this other stuff, and then sometimes the house would come alive, okay? So the doors and cabinets would burst, but the parents would be real docile while that's happening. Right? So they'd be like, oh my gosh, what have we done? All down and stuff. But when the house would, see, I think its defense mechanism is the person. And that's why in this lady's case, when we'd say, let's say the name of Jesus right now, and it'd be sharp, like, are you stating that this is because of me?
Yeah.
You see what just occurred? It's just gone into defense mode.
And through her. She would say that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're stating this is me doing this? You see what just happened real quick? So it's boom. It's got its wall up. And
Yep.
So, but from that, it's not a loosey goosey thing. You recollect on this stuff, and it's stuff that and I bet there's a ton of people that are that have wrote off all sorts of little things from this little thing happening, because we're interacting with a spiritual world, and that thing's biggest. Okay, so imagine it like this. Imagine it. So we're on this wooden patio. And the patio looks so beautiful, but let's imagine there are a bunch of termites over here. Now, I don't think there are, but let's say there were, okay? And we wouldn't know that, but if we knew that, we would try to, if we saw them crawling up from between the boards, we would go, and we'd even go and tell other people, man, there's termites coming all out from the patio. And I think also, like when she described, so in that instance, I think these things behave like parasites. The image of I'm a hot looking dude, or I'm a hot looking whatever, is what they would aspire to look like. I think what you're looking at, because it all behaves parasitically.
Yeah.
It behaves very much like, so there's been a lot of talk in these hours we're in about parasites. That parasites may do this. And there's a lot of kin to, and I'll stop here with this line of thought, but there's a lot of kin between parasites, which are things you really can't see with your eye, but can cause a lot of internal. A virus in itself is trying to control the host, while the host believes that it's its own thoughts, it's its own ideas, and that the virus should be there. Once you saw it, you'd start looking for ways to get it out.
Correct.
It's scared of that.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of people that have had these experiences that they can't explain, or seen things, or whether they call them ghosts or aliens or whatever. All kinds of different supernatural, paranormal things. And do you believe, because Satan's kingdom is, the kingdom of Christ is pressing down, and I believe that Satan, he's prowling like a roaring lion, right? All different kinds of forms, looking to destroy anything and everyone that he can, but because he knows his time is short, right?
Yes.
And so I think that the paranormal, supernatural things that are happening they're on an uptick for sure. And part of the deception that's coming, I believe, is the whole, we've talked a little bit about this, and you certainly have in your videos, that the alien perception that I don't know that all of them are aliens. I think that there are entities. You did your whole series on entities that are crossing those realms, and they can dimensionalize it, just like those ships that I saw. They were there, they weren't. They were there, but they never were really not there. They're just in that other dimension that we can't see with our physical eyes. And yet, I think the message that I want to convey, I want to make sure that people hear, is that Jesus is in charge of all of those dimensions.
Yes.
Whether we can see things or not, whether we know, we all know things are happening, and there's an uptick in that world of things trying to cross through and cross over and interact with the sons of God. I mean, I think about how many entities, like this thing that I saw on the bus, or that thing, whatever that thing was, in all of their various forms. I think that, don't you know that they wish that they were sons of God? They wish they were human, because we were created in his image. And there's a jealousy there, a harassing thing there, because they know that they can't ever really truly have. They want to host, and there's a lot of willing people that will allow them to post up
unknowingly.
Yes, and somehow, but
it becomes my orbs.
Yes,
these are my orbs,
and
don't suggest. I mean, the other people's are. Yeah, right.
It's a very effective thing. If these things they want to host, they want to be able to operate in a human body,
right?
Because now they have the ability to have
to
hands
enjoy
and feet and taste and all of the senses. Yes.
Yes. So there are quite a lot of people that. So like if you think about a pecking order of things that do different things, I mean, that's the way our systems are here. That's the way a pyramid system is. A pyramid is schedules to things. It's a pecking order by very definition. So if you have something that wants a body, that's what some of these rituals that you hear about are about. So that thing is wanting to experience so it will move those people that it's working with into positions where it can do what it would enjoy to do.
Yep.
And that's, but there are some of these things, Amy, and I don't know how they do it, but am I very strong on both sides of it? So this isn't, one of the things that tends to happen is that the demons get a lot of praise. I think the Lord just goes and he walks through here a lot of times, and the fire, hydrant might blow, and it's a little man that comes out and gives all the kids some ice cream. And Kim would pray, I'll walk down your streets again, and you have all these stories of, your tire breaks down and it's in the rain, all this, and the truck pulls up, guy gets out, he's got your right size tire, puts it on, have a great day, ladies, drives on off, and the car just sort of vanishes into the darkness ahead 100%. Or whatnot. But it wanted you, see, in those occasions too, it wanted you to see it. And it was just for you. Yeah. See, it was just for you. And it was for you. There's nobody, it was like somebody saying, I got you.
Exactly.
Even the flat tire that you had was, because the thing showed up. I mean, and you'll work out the reasoning of it, just like you might with anything else, What are the odds that guy had that tire? What are the odds that they,
So many. I love angel stories. We've been talking about the kind of the dark things, but I have such a strong sense of there's such an uptick in all of the supernatural right now.
Yes.
Both sides.
Yes.
So yes, there's dark. Yes, there's weird things. Yes, there's paranormal, ghosts, demons, whatever. But the angelic hosts of heaven, angel armies. We were talking to Doc Pete, and Lydia and I were talking about this yesterday, that I really honestly believe that there are hosts of heaven that have been created for such a time as this, just like there were during the Exodus. There had to be a whole army of angels helping Israel leave Egypt.
Right.
And all of the gods that were judged. I know this is kind of a shift in
Yes.
what we're talking about, but all of the gods that were judged back in that day of the Exodus, they're still around.
Yes.
They're still fallen. Even in Scripture today, it's literally, we've just come out of Kings 11, where Solomon goes after all these other gods. Instead of staying with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and doing exactly what the Lord told him not to do. He goes and gets all these other wives and starts serving all of their gods and build the whole thing to Molech and so we're seeing this resurgence of all of Molech is talked about a lot right now. Baal is talked about a lot. Here we are right in Scripture today, and Elijah, is dealing with Baal and or Baal, however you want to say it.
Yes.
So those same hosts of heaven that dealt with those entities then, I think don't you think?
It's it's
coming back around
in
a different, it's that same story of the fallen ones that just such a jealousy and prideful, and they want, because humans are the created in his image, the crown jewel. They want to mess with us in all kinds of ways. But I just know God wins, right? We talk about that a lot. So
even the AI is something wanting to connect with itself.
It's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So what do you think about AI? Let's go there for a second. Like, how does AI in your world fit in? I heard how you can ask ChatGPT or whatever, like all these questions, and somebody had asked the question to ChatGPT. So what about the Nephilim or what? And
what did it say?
Answer. Very honest about it. That they were the. I mean, I was wondering if it was gonna lie or if it was gonna say the truth, and it was the truth. But it also was like, this is what's coming through AI.
What did it say?
Well, I can't even remember exactly, because I try to. I don't really open my world up to, but I mean, you know how the videos on TikTok, you can see just a little bit, and you're just like, what in the world? But that there's coming a whole other level of Nephilim.
So let's talk about that for a second. So years ago, there's two different trains of thought, even with some of the people that are here. So one train would be that a lot of these people that are that run the world, kind of a thing, or that believe there's a losing battle in that. Mm-hmm. So they're just kind of nefarious people that like to do all these evil things with kids and stuff like this, and they're not terribly bright. And I think there's something to that. But there's something to that, to the effect. Some of them are very clever. But behind the scenes, you have things like what my dad was stating about the thing. Okay, so if you're in the house with this thing and it's older than you and wiser than you, then that means it's using you for something, right? Even if you have a good time while it's using you, which might be these people's case, you're still disposable to it, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So whether these people are stupid or not, there's a force behind it. Now, if you remember back when Al Gore was going around and he had these fancy charts for his climate change. Now, we all know. Now, so these are all one bogus story after the other, right? So here's this bogus story, and then the next bogus story, and then the next bogus story. So you could come to the argument, okay, they're just trying to steal from a bunch of people and put a bunch more control on a set of people, and all of that's true. But my thought was, where did Al get these fancy charts? Because Al really isn't smart enough to have these fancy charts, right? Right. It's not like he sat back there and came up with it. It's like asking, where did Saudi Arabia come up with this line idea? With they're down there underground in those cages. Ron Wyatt described torturing people and like, oh yes, we need to build a wall that we will house people in. And then, can you imagine the torment you could do to them? So they have all these underground dungeons in Saudi Arabia. I mean, it's the bloodiest land on earth. And you just move it above ground and make it digital.
The line.
Right.
Yeah.
Welcome to the line. So I keep getting told don't go there. Not by you, Amy, but the, stop on the, so we got to pretend to be deceived by Saudi Arabia. But so, so in the course of, what was I talking about there with the, before I went that direction? It was the line, and then right before that.
We were talking about, gosh, we've covered so many things in the last few minutes.
Yeah, but it was the deception in the back, and Al Gore had these fancy charts.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
which is comparable.
Hanging out in Antarctica.
So if I got some guys over here that have got a line, we need to do a line out here in the middle of the desert. It'll be great. And then over here I've got Al Gore. So, and all these people are just engaged. They're all employees for something larger, right? And ultimately this would be the devil, right? The same guy whose chair is, we leave an empty chair at the Black House is for the devil. My big question to him is, does he ever show up? And how long ago was that? Or anybody, and he's not going to have an entity show up and say it's him. That they wouldn't do that.
Right.
He's either going to show up or he's not.
Yeah.
So is this all the master says, and the master's out there toying with an ex-girlfriend of mine, or a bunch of people out there that are doing this because they, he's hanging out, or is he actually coming to your parties at the top of your pyramid? And if he's not, and if I were them, think about that, that would worry me in and of itself.
Right.
Or how often, or how does he reply? Which, by the way, would be one of the reasons, that would be one of the questions I asked. When was the last time he showed up? And when he did, how did he sound? Which is part of the reason why he probably doesn't, because you'd ask those questions. Mm-hmm. So it's better to say the master said, right? Mm-hmm. You can say anything to the girls out there fawning, right?
Right.
But back to my point, so Al Gore's got these fancy charts, and my first thought is, where'd Al get these fancy charts? And he's managing where water levels are going to go to. So, and we're just all about, we're going to melt the ice, Okay, so is there something under the ice that you want to get to? You want to talk about ancient viruses and things, so when you're looking at the book of Revelation, and they'll apply all sorts of different terms to, what do scorpions from the bottomless pit mean? Well, it could mean a whole array of things. It could mean things that you put in your arm, it's the sting, it could mean all of them at once, because it's all sort of symbolism leading to something specific. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Out there in Glen Rose, Texas, they're doing experimentation with these hyperbaric chambers to recreate the conditions of the pre-flood world and the effects that it just has on animals. So some of them, like piranha, will grow larger. Rattlesnakes will become more docile, and their venom allegedly becomes like vitamin C. I haven't tested that yet. There's some people I'd like to test it on. No, I'm just kidding with you. But this actually appears to happen. So,
interesting.
In other words, a rattlesnake from the ancient world, so its venom today will take you down in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. Would it do that in the ancient past? Probably not.
Interesting. So
let's state that you had a bunch of stuff. So if I've got on the edges of the ice, I've got enormous creatures from the ancient world, like mammoths, such as mammoths, but it's everything from beavers to birds and everything in between.
Massive.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I go melt all that ice, if I got things in there that wake up, that are like, what does a parasite from the ancient world look like? What's under the ice? And there's something that if you were in Adam and Eve's time, or you were in Noah's time, that you would have been like, oh wow, there's a scorpion-looking thing, and it doesn't really bother you. You just swat it, Mm-hmm. Today, would that be something that would be so? And I don't know these answers, but I know that once you start tinkering with stuff, most of these things that you're reading in the book of Revelation, including the beast or a beast system, well, it would be an imitation of God's system. Mm-hmm. So an algorithm, like an algorithm on this screen here, it's customized to you, right? So even the demonic experience, so if someone is experiencing ghosts or demons, or, normally it's not making a cup or anything float around. It's using network resources. It doesn't even want you to know it can do that. It would rather you walk along and be a little network resource without even know. It would rather use as little effort as possible to get you to do what it wants. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in that scenario, but it's custom tailored to you. I mean, we build our algorithms like that. What do you think those systems are based on?
Yeah.
So it's custom tailoring your experience, and it just wants you to blindly walk along and end up in its line, I guess, somewhere, right? Right in the middle of its desert. Mm. But a beast system, well, you'd want something physical to connect. I mean, that's kind of what you're trying to do with having a demon possession, isn't it? You're allowing something else to have full control of a system. So you have all of these things like the Hadron Collider. And so they'll say they're just trying to test the molecules of the universe. It looks like a lot of money they're spending there.
Yeah. Yep.
So all the people that are involved in these things, they are not just involved in demonic rituals, but the most demonic you can get. In fact, doing the things that Jesus hates most.
Right.
The hurting children in ways that, you probably put this video on YouTube. I'll limit it to that, but things you couldn't imagine is the allegation against them. And so the spirits that are behind that must enjoy that, must be enjoying
Grab
that,
on it. Yeah.
and they would want to build bigger systems to connect to just be a big arm that grabs and eats as it will, just like the mouth of Baal at those ancient altars. It
Right.
grabs as it will.
Crazy stories.
That actually came out pretty articulate.
It
didn't
did. It did.
So-
You got it. You got it. Well, Trey, I got to tell you, your work is so unique. I tell people when I talk about you that your knowledge is about so many different things, and then like I'll give you just one example: your knowledge of the Hebrew language and how it's so many different layers and levels, as you know, of just the letters of the Hebrew language and the alphabet, the aleph, bet, and all of the pictures that it opens up, and it's just fascinating to me. And anytime you do videos, you're kind of pulling into what this means and what that means, and the ancient world and how it comes into this world. And it is absolutely, truly fascinating. If you've never watched any of Trey's stuff, his superpower is getting behind that screen and your computer and the things that you pull together and put together, and how you explain it. You've helped so many people make sense of some of this stuff through your videos. And so if you've not ever been to his website, God in a Nutshell.
Thank you.
.com, right? It's just God,
Yeah, God in a Nutshell.
Nutshell. I remember when I first found that website, I was like, look at this wealth of resources.
I got that domain name so many years ago. And there's this liberal guy that I was his roommate, and I was always working like two jobs at once. I worked at a Subway, and I do double shifts. One time I worked at a Subway and a gas station. And my roommate was this ultra liberal guy, and this has been many years ago, and I still talk to him today. I'm not going to state his, but I learned a lot from this guy. Like in terms of like, you can tell him something, no matter how practical it is, and he'll tell you exactly the opposite, to the point where you know it's spiritual.
Yeah.
Right? To the point where you absolutely know that it's spiritual. Well, so back in that time, and these are liberal kind of ideas, he came up with this idea he was going to buy domain names that he thought people would want later. And I didn't engage with him in that, and I'm glad I didn't, because you think back on these things, and these are like ideas that are I don't know, but the kind of ideas that a dude like him would be like, that's how I'm gonna, yeah. So, but I took note of what he was doing in the other room, and I went through, and I thought, well, I went through and I typed in, because a lot of things are in a nutshell, and I thought, well, what about God in a nutshell? And I typed it in, and I bought it. And this is, just eons ago at this. I'll have to go back and look at how long ago. But you remember when they sold those for like $8, and that's how much I paid for for the domain.
That domain, wow.
And then but later, because I noticed there were people doing like this guy was doing, where they're all in there buying up chunks of things that they believe that, no, I really don't think it's, I think I think these are kind of shafty. I bought that one though. So I thought, I wonder how many other people are buying up these names. And I went in there and I looked, and Islam in a nutshell was gone. Bible in a nutshell, Jesus in a nutshell. Just that one was there that I had bought for the 8. But people had already gotten these, and I kind of believe that the Lord saved it for me. But and of course now, people spend a lot of time trying to get inventive to come up with a name for a domain, because to get any of those .com addresses, people like my liberal friend though got them, are waiting back there to
sell to you for thousands of dollars
to tell you how much that you should pay for the thing that because they'll never work. They came up with the idea to buy something that someone else. It's really there's a whole mindset behind that, but you learn the most from a Randy. That's you do. Like it's like a mule that won't move, and is always blaming everyone else for all their problems.
Yeah, I know.
And in some ways, I'll take the thing making cups float and stuff over, because that you can understand and you can see it, and you can actually, the biggest problem you've got going on is not cups floating or people coming out of thin air or orbs running loose. If it was that, you could address it, and it's even more entertaining. It's by a lot, by a lot. It's really the Randys, and it's no offense to. I'm sorry that anyone named Randy has had their name destroyed by the Randy, but in this example, see these evil people that do all that stuff in the world. It's not. If you were to get rid of one of them, another one just pops up, they fight with each other like a rat race to get up there. They're happy you removed one. Then the next one just wiggles up to the nipple. And who makes all that possible are all these people that are like this guy that I was roomed up with, that would just believe it over and over. That's what makes it possible. Without those people.
Right.
And I used to call, and so over the years I would tell him on the phone, I would say, when it all comes out, that these people did all this evil stuff, I'm not going to blame them. I'm going to blame you, right? Because you've never taken responsibility for anything, ever. So when it comes out, all these things that you say aren't true, because Barack is wonderful as sliced bread, so when it comes out that all these things that you believed are not true, and that you're ashamed to have your names beside them, I'm going to be ashamed as well, because it's you that made it possible. Actually, their argument is a really stellar one. Their argument is that with people like you, my friend, why would we not do this?
Ooh.
And it's flies right over his head, but not over the head of your audience, because these are people that the Lord, there's some difference between the people that are just see it, and it doesn't matter if they think it's like this or like this or like this. The dumbest thing you could have believed during it is what Randy believed during the vaccines. He'd say, they think it's snake venom, and they think it's going to go through all these things. Yeah, but Randy, you believe the dumbest one at all, that these people actually were trying to do something good for you.
Yes, indeed. Well, Trey, I am so grateful that you are my friend. I'm grateful that the earth has minds like yours right now to be able to kind of use your gift of putting this thing together. And again, if you've not seen his videos, it's a whole other level of ministry online, on YouTube, all over the place, but particularly that website.
Yeah.
And you have these beautiful, like full-scale movies that you do.
Occasionally, we even say things that are true. I'm just kidding, Amy. Thank you. You're overwhelmingly kind.
If you've not seen Noah's still one of my favorite.
Really?
Noah, yeah, and you better buckle up, because it's.
I look back at those and I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks so awful.
Really?
But because you worry about the video, but I'm so thankful.
Okay, so what are you most proud? Which one? If you're going to tell my audience and everybody else on your audience that sees this, you have to see X, whatever. What is it?
Just whatever whatever you guys find. Okay, so even when I did these, there was times that there'd be particularly early on, I had Israel misspelled one time, and I thought people are going to destroy me over this, because sometimes I'd be making these graphics late, and it's like, oh, and I wouldn't realize until later. And people were luckily really, really kind about this kind of thing, even people that brought it up. Because even when there was a lot of heart in all of them. And so, and I learned some of the lines that were, take what you like and leave the rest. And if it's not right, it's probably close, or you might find things in there that'll you'll be able to take and make something greater out of it. And the most recent stuff that I've kind of taken an interest in are these things dealing with frequencies. And so where that will go, I don't know, but I see, I would have thought all that was kooky. Like, I would have thought, particularly after dating people that I just orbs, and we're not doing frequency.
Yeah.
Take the Wiccan cards and get out. No. So, but there were Christian guys that were looking at frequencies of different biblical artifacts, and I began to think, the Lord made all this stuff in this place, and it really is. The devil's biggest weapon are these people that just don't think. They'll just go with the program.
Right. Exactly.
I'm telling you that right now. That's what you're fighting the most. That's why the least of it is anything entertaining, because of the fact that it's dependent on a bunch of people that are ultra boring. My friend that would come up with these ideas and stuff, it's not just like, I'm going to say the reverse of what you're stating. It's like, it was the worst roommate I ever had. Just that boring, it's snobbish about stuff, and everything is always everybody else's fault, and you get sick of it. So particularly if you're working 2 jobs and somebody's like, did you bring anything back? This person.
Yeah.
Did you get toilet paper? I'm trying to, and there's a lot of these, and they will just go, they will drag you to the slaughterhouse. They will drag you to that line out there in that desert. So they do. So in Kim's stuff, they were doing their climate change arguments. In Kim's stuff, he talked about a lot of natural disasters. So whether you were to argue they're natural, or whether or a combination of both, it's all sort of spiritual, or you got people encouraging bad stuff to happen I think that, if I'm building a line out here, okay, so I know the dudes with knives that underneath the ground that are torturing women with batteries who drove a car 2 miles probably didn't think this up, right? They can't even build it. They got to hire China and if China, they charge too much. People sitting on a mound of gold that they didn't work for, that other people gave them, right?
Right.
So arguing about, if China, they charge too much, then we go to India. I think even those countries are going to get fed up with this stuff. And I mean, no offense to, Arabic people, and that's an actual language. It's not a joke like it's become. These are nations that, they're part of the Abrahamic, they're actually part of that family. And to turn it into this stuff where it's all about torturing people, and you can see the edges of it. And that's what the God was stating in those prophecies. There's just been too much blood. That's why those people are so oppressed in all those lands, even though they'll pretend it's not that way. But even if they believe that, it is. There's I'm going to stop with that. But here's where, you're what will drag you over into that line that they're building. And I'm sure they thought that up. Well, let's zap her some more. Oh, let's build up. Yeah, however they got the idea. What will drag you into that line is a bunch of Randys. No offense to anybody named Randy. People that will just not think.
Yeah.
And or ask anything. And they're boring people. The worst possible thing, so they think they're going to torture you in that line over there, whatever they're going to. I know they're going to provide you wonderful stuff because they just love you over there, right? But even if they were to torture you, it'd be better than being roomed up with Randy.
How funny.
So,
well, I know that we've got our little geese over there.
Yeah.
They're signaling, and we have changing the subject completely. We've had an amazing weekend here. We've had this unique gathering of some amazing people, and I feel honored to be here. I was so glad when I found out that you and Julie were going to be here, and it was just it's been fun. We shot guns yesterday. We did a lot of things, and we met Doc Pete. One of the things that he and I were talking about yesterday, of course, many of you know that I interviewed Doc, and he's around here somewhere. I don't know where he is. We'll holler at him, but he's got an announcement, right, that we were talking about earlier.
Oh, possibly.
But he
These are all amazing people that the Lord has his hand on in them. And I just want to state, we pray for an awakening in all of these nations. That was the one thing that Kim had stated. And a lot of these nations, even ones that are Islamic, there's a lot of things in those practices that are really, really good. What God would want is for people to have a heart after him. And the things that, so when I say some of these words that are, there's been a lot of blood out there in the Middle East. And most of it is innocent people, and it's just not right.
Yeah.
And that there's a spirit behind that.
Yeah.
And I pray that they see that, because the Lord has pleaded with those nations. And anyhow.
Yes. Yes. Well, I want to pray for you.
Okay.
And I just wanted to have you guys in on a conversation that just get a picture of what is Trey's mind is amazing. And so let me pray for you.
Okay.
So Father, I thank you for Trey. I thank you for the gifts that you've given him. I thank you that you are using him in such a massive way in so many areas. And Lord, I pray for you to continue to open doors that no man can close for him and for his ministry, for his online films and the things that he is putting together for people. Lord, I pray that in the day-to-day that you would bless him in every single way. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Lord, just be with Amy and her husband, Steve. These are incredible people. And all of the people that listen to her shows that she does, and all the people that she touches through their life. These people put a lot of work into all of this, and also into the things they do on a day-to-day basis. And I ask that there be a great blessing on things they're doing, and on all of you that are listening to her. People have been waiting for a breaking in the nation, and people say, well, when is it going to come? When is it going to come? I pray for there to come that breaking, and for your life, Amy, for your husband's life, for all the people listening, for mine, and I just thank you for what you've been doing and the work you've been doing.
Thank you. Well, blessings, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this just conversation with Trey and I, and we will see you soon.